What happens after we die? This question has been with you since the first moment you realized that life, as beautiful and fragile as it is, eventually comes to an end. It sits in the background of your thoughts, surfacing in quiet moments, in times of loss, or in the stillness of a sleepless night. You've felt it in the heaviness of saying goodbye to someone you love. You've wondered about it when you've stood under a starlit sky, looking into the vastness, and wondering if something waits for you out there. No matter who you are or where you've come from, this question is universal. It has followed humanity since the very dawn of self-awareness. From the earliest cave paintings to the most intricate philosophies, people have tried to peer beyond the veil. Ancient shamans spoke of journeying into other realms, meeting ancestors, and returning with wisdom. Egyptian priests left behind elaborate texts describing the soul's voyage through the afterlife, complete with trials, guides, and gates to be passed. The Greeks imagined the river Styx and the fields of Elysium. Eastern traditions spoke of cycles of rebirth, where the soul takes on new forms again and again. Native peoples around the world have told stories of spirit worlds existing alongside this one, invisible but always present. You've inherited these stories in one way or another. They've been passed down to you in sacred texts, whispered tales, or even the quiet beliefs of your own family. Some offer comfort, others warn of judgment, but all share the same unshakable truth. The human heart cannot help but wonder what lies on the other side of the final breath. For thousands of years, cultures have built entire spiritual systems to prepare for this moment, treating death not as the end but as a crossing into something mysterious and perhaps eternal. Yet, despite all the myths, scriptures, and visions, there's a part of you that longs for more than just inherited belief. You want to know, not just hope. You want to understand in a way that resonates deeply, in a way that feels like truth, not just tradition. And if you're honest, you've felt moments when something inside you whispered that death is not what you've been told. Maybe it was the unshakable sense that someone you loved was still with you after they passed. Maybe it was a dream so vivid that it felt like a visit, a conversation that left you with answers you didn't know you were seeking. Or maybe it was the uncanny way the world seemed to speak to you through signs and synchronicities after a loss, as if reminding you that nothing truly ends. Throughout history, there have been rare individuals who claimed to lift the veil and bring back descriptions of what they saw. Some were mystics who entered deep states of meditation, others slipped between worlds in near-death experiences, and some spoke while in states of trance, accessing something beyond ordinary perception. These accounts often share a striking similarity, regardless of the time period or culture. They speak of light that feels alive. They speak of being met by familiar souls. They speak of a realm more real than the one you're in now, a place where the mind is clear, love is tangible, and the soul understands itself in ways it never could while in the body. The most compelling visions are not those that paint death as an ending, but those that describe it as a continuation of life in a form that's not bound by flesh and bone. In these accounts, death becomes less like falling asleep and more like stepping through a doorway into a larger room, one filled with colors your eyes have never seen, sounds your ears have never heard, and a sense of home you've always carried but never fully recognized. This isn't a place where you wait idly, drifting in clouds. It's a place of movement, learning, and preparation, a place where the journey continues. When you look at the way different traditions describe the afterlife, you begin to notice a pattern. Across continents and centuries, people speak of guides who meet the soul after death. They speak of a kind of review, where every moment of life is revisited with a new depth of understanding. They describe realms that reflect the inner state of the soul, as if consciousness itself shapes the environment. These patterns point to something beyond coincidence. They suggest that the truth about life after death may not be locked inside any single belief system, but is instead a universal reality glimpsed by many through different lenses. For those who have dared to go deeper, the afterlife is not some distant, unreachable dimension. It exists alongside the world you know right now, only vibrating at a frequency your physical senses aren't tuned to detect. Imagine for a moment that you are surrounded by layers of reality all the time, like radio stations playing simultaneously. Just because you're tuned to one doesn't mean the others aren't there. Death is simply the act of changing the channel. There are people who claim they have touched this higher frequency without having to die. In moments of deep stillness, intense spiritual focus, or altered states, they've crossed into this other realm and brought back insights that speak not only of peace and reunion, but of purpose. These descriptions are remarkably consistent, and they are not tales of final judgment or eternal stagnation. They are stories of a soul still on a path, still evolving, still connected to the living in ways that are often invisible but no less real. For some, the idea that the dead are not simply waiting but are actively engaged in their own journey is life-changing. It reframes loss into something more bearable. It suggests that your loved ones are not gone, they've just stepped into another phase of existence where they are continuing their own growth, while perhaps even helping you from behind the scenes. And it hints at a truth that can change how you live now, that death is not an interruption but part of a greater cycle, one that you've traveled many times before and will travel again. You may not remember the times you've walked this path before, but deep within you is the knowing that you've been here, and you'll return. The question is not whether something exists beyond death, but what it is you will find there, and how the life you live now will shape that reality. This is not a mystery meant to terrify you, but one meant to awaken you to the truth that life and death are inseparable parts of the same eternal movement. The journey we're about to explore doesn't come from blind faith or idle imagination. It comes from detailed accounts of those who claim to see beyond the veil and describe not only where the dead go, but what they are doing right now between incarnations. What you will discover is that the realm beyond the physical is far more alive, purposeful, and interconnected with your world than you've been taught to believe. And once you begin to understand this, the fear of death starts to fade, replaced by an entirely new way of seeing your own existence. There are moments in history when a single life seems to open a window into the unseen. Imagine a man who, without formal theological training, and without claiming any religious authority, could close his eyes, enter a deep trance, and return speaking about realms beyond life with such precision and compassion that it left even skeptics quietly thoughtful. This was no act of showmanship. His gift was as natural to him as breathing, and yet it was something he could not explain in the ordinary language of science or tradition. While his body lay still, his awareness would travel to a place he described as a limitless storehouse of truth, a realm he called the Akashic records. Here, every thought, every emotion, and every action ever taken by any soul was said to be inscribed, not on paper or stone, but in the very fabric of existence itself. In this vast field of memory, the past, present, and even the seeds of the future were accessible to the one who knew how to enter. In these trance states, he would speak as if reading from a cosmic ledger, offering not abstract theories, but detailed accounts of what happens when a soul leaves its body behind. He described a universe not bound by the rigid walls of heaven and hell that many had been taught to imagine, but instead as a living, breathing reality, where consciousness is dynamic, always moving toward greater understanding. These insights stood apart from the doctrines that emphasized eternal reward or punishment. There was no final sentence handed down by an external judge. Instead, there was a continuous journey, shaped by the soul's own choices, lessons, and readiness to grow. What made his words compelling was not just the content but the spirit in which they were given. He did not speak to frighten, control, or condemn. His descriptions were calm, even tender, like someone reporting on a place they had seen with their own eyes, a place they knew intimately. To those who feared death, his accounts brought a strange and unexpected comfort. To those who had lost someone dear, his words opened the possibility that their loved one was not gone, not asleep in some cold, still place, but alive in another form, learning, healing, and preparing for what would come next. At a time when spiritual matters were often framed in the language of fear, he spoke in the language of growth. He rejected the idea that any soul was cast aside forever. Instead, he suggested that each soul, no matter how far it had wandered from its highest potential, was always capable of turning toward the light. Even the most painful experiences, in his telling, became opportunities for understanding. This was not the simplistic comfort of everything happens for a reason, but a deeper recognition that within the infinite span of existence, nothing is wasted. Every joy, every sorrow, every mistake becomes part of the raw material the soul uses to build wisdom. The difference between his visions and religious dogma was not in their reverence for the sacred, but in their scope. Where dogma tended to draw hard lines, saved or damned, believer or unbeliever, his readings spoke of degrees of awareness, of vibrational levels that a soul could rise through or sink into, depending on the harmony or discord it had cultivated within. The spiritual realm, as he described it, was not a static location but a series of interwoven dimensions, each matching the consciousness of those who dwelled there. This meant that the afterlife was not a reward given or a sentence imposed, it was a reflection, a mirror held up to the soul. Skeptics might have dismissed such accounts as imagination, yet the consistency of his readings over decades told another story. The language might change depending on who was asking the question, but the framework remained steady, a living universe, a purposeful journey, a soul that could never be destroyed. People from all walks of life sought him out, grieving parents, the terminally ill, curious seekers, and even those simply wondering why life felt so hard. The answers they received were not the kind that fit neatly into a sermon or a scientific paper. They were personal, direct, and often startlingly accurate in ways that could not be easily explained. Those who studied his work closely noticed another pattern. His visions often bridged the gap between ancient wisdom and modern understanding. He spoke of the Akashic records in terms that echoed the mystical traditions of both East and West, yet he also described them in ways that hinted at concepts we might now call fields of consciousness or information networks. Without using the terminology of neuroscience or quantum physics, he still seemed to touch on ideas that would only begin to be explored decades after his lifetime. In this way, his credibility rested not only on the sincerity of his delivery, but also on the strange way his insights seemed to harmonize with knowledge humanity had not yet fully uncovered. To this day, people revisit his words because they offer something more than belief. They offer a vision that feels both vast and intimate. They suggest that the universe is not ruled by blind chance or cold law, but by a living intelligence that invites every soul into deeper awareness. In his telling, the realm between lives is not an empty waiting room but a place of profound activity. Souls rest, yes, but they also review, learn, heal, and choose. The journey continues, not in spite of death, but through it. For many, this was a radical shift in perspective. It asked them to release the notion of death as a great ending, and instead see it as a doorway. It encouraged them to think of their own lives not as isolated events, but as chapters in a much larger book. And perhaps, most importantly, it invited them to take responsibility for their own spiritual state, not out of fear of judgment, but out of a desire to step more fully into the truth of who they are. That is why his voice still matters, not because he claimed to be the only one who could see into the beyond, but because he reminded us that the beyond is not beyond us. It is here, woven into the present moment, as close as the next breath. We carry the seeds of that realm within us now, and when the time comes to cross its threshold, it will not feel like entering foreign ground. It will feel like going home to a place we have always known. You've been taught to see death as the end of a story, the closing of a book you can never open again. The way it's often spoken about carries an air of finality, as if the last breath seals you away from everything you've known and loved. Yet the truth is far more expansive, far more beautiful, and far less frightening. Death is not an ending. It is a doorway, a crossing into a space you've been to before, even if you can't remember it now. Imagine walking through a vast mansion, each room more intricate and alive than the last. Moving from one to another does not erase where you've been. It simply offers a different view, a different experience, a different part of the journey. The place you leave behind doesn't vanish. It remains, and so do the connections you've built within it. In this way, death is less a departure and more a relocation. You are not extinguished. You are not dissolved into nothingness. You simply step into another chamber of existence, one that has always been there, surrounding you, waiting for your awareness to shift enough to enter it fully. You might think of it like walking through a doorway from a brightly lit room into another that glows with a light you've never seen before. There's a moment of adjustment as your senses adapt to new surroundings, but soon you realize the space is alive with detail and meaning. What's beyond that doorway is not a void but a continuation, a vivid, conscious state where your awareness remains intact and sharper than before. If you've ever woken from a dream that felt so real it seemed impossible you were asleep, you've touched a faint echo of this transition. There's a shift in the quality of perception, a sudden realization that what you thought was the entirety of reality was only a small corner of it. In that instant, boundaries you once thought were permanent begin to dissolve. The line between life and death is one of those boundaries, and it is far more permeable than you've been led to believe. Many who have brushed against the threshold describe a sense of remarkable clarity, as though stepping out of a fog they didn't know they were in. The mind is not clouded, the senses are not dulled. In fact, they are heightened. Colors seem richer, sounds carry deeper resonance, and even thought moves with a kind of precision you never imagined possible. You are still you, yet you are more than you have ever been. This is the continuity of consciousness, the truth that your awareness does not begin with birth nor end with death. It is the constant thread that weaves through every chapter of your existence, no matter how many rooms of the mansion you walk through. Think about how your life has already moved through stages that felt, at the time, like irreversible endings. You've left homes, cities, relationships, jobs, and entire ways of life behind. Each time, you might have felt a mix of fear and anticipation, uncertainty and possibility, and yet, each ending revealed itself to be a beginning in disguise. Death is much the same. The body may be shed like a worn garment, but the traveler within it moves on, carrying the essence of who you are into the next unfolding space. One of the great illusions that makes death seem so final is the focus on the body as the center of your identity. You've been conditioned to think of yourself as flesh and bone, bound to the five senses and the passage of time. Yet the body is a vessel, precious, yes, but not the source of your life. It is more like a beautifully crafted suit of clothing that allows you to move and express yourself in this particular realm. When the time comes, you simply step out of it, much as you would remove a heavy coat at the door of another room. You are lighter then, more fluid, less bound by the laws you once thought were unbreakable. If you could see this transition from the perspective of the soul, you would not grieve it as an end. You would see it as the natural continuation of your own growth. Just as a seed must break its shell to become a tree, you must release the physical form to fully awaken into the next phase of your journey. And in that awakening, you are not cut off from those you love. The mansion of existence is vast, but its rooms are connected in ways you can't yet imagine. Those connections remain, sometimes in subtle, almost imperceptible ways, and sometimes in moments so profound that they leave no doubt the bond is unbroken. You may have felt this yourself, a sudden warmth when you think of someone who has passed, a whisper of guidance in a moment of need, a dream so vivid you wake with tears in your eyes. These are not accidents or wishful thinking. They are glimpses of the truth, that the so-called departed are not gone, only elsewhere, living fully in another part of the mansion. From their side of the doorway, they may still visit, still comfort, still walk with you unseen. The fear of death often comes from the idea that it is unknown, but the reality is that it is deeply familiar. You have walked through this passage many times before. Each lifetime has been a chapter in a far greater story, one that does not begin with your current birth, nor end with your final heartbeat. You may not remember the transitions, but your soul does. It knows the feel of stepping into that other room. It knows the lightness, the release, the expansion. And it knows that, no matter how real the pain of loss feels in the moment, the truth is that nothing essential is ever lost. When you release the idea of death as a wall and begin to see it as a doorway, your relationship to life changes as well. You begin to live with a deeper sense of purpose, knowing that every choice you make shapes not only your days here but the path you will walk beyond. You realize that this chapter, this particular room in the mansion, is temporary, and that its value lies in how fully you experience it, how deeply you love, how much you grow. This awareness softens your fear and heightens your appreciation for every moment you have. Imagine how different your life would feel if you carried this perspective with you always, that you are an eternal traveler, moving from room to room in a house so immense you could never explore it all. Some rooms are warm and bright, others are shadowed and challenging, but all are part of the same home. You do not fall into nothingness when you leave one behind. You simply cross a threshold, open a new door, and step forward into another facet of your own infinite existence. And in that step, you are not alone. The mansion is full of fellow travelers, some ahead of you, some behind, some walking alongside you, even now in ways you cannot yet see. The continuity of consciousness ensures that your journey is never truly solitary, that the thread of your awareness is always connected to the greater tapestry of all souls. You have been here before. You will be here again, and when you cross that next doorway, you will discover, as you always have, that what waits for you is not the end, but a new beginning. The moment of passing is not what most people expect. There is no violent tearing away from life, no sudden plunge into darkness, unless that is what you have feared so intensely that it becomes the first shape your mind projects. For many, it begins with a soft release, like slipping out of a heavy garment you didn't realize you had been wearing all your life. One breath is drawn in the body, and the next is drawn somewhere else entirely. The first awareness is often not of a place, but of a change in weight, in pressure, in density. The body that you once moved with effort and care is suddenly gone, replaced by something lighter, freer, and more fluid than you have ever known. You may not even realize, in those first moments, that you have left the physical world. The environment around you may still look like a familiar room, a hospital bed, a forest, a street. The mind initially holds on to what it knows. This stage of transition is one of orientation, and it is shaped entirely by your state of mind at the moment of passing. If you were prepared, either through a lifetime of spiritual reflection or a quiet acceptance of death, the shift can be smooth, even beautiful. There is a clarity, a brightness to the space around you, as if you are looking at the world through new eyes. If, however, you carried confusion, fear, or an unwillingness to let go, this stage can be disorienting. You might cling to the familiar, unable to see beyond the veil your own thoughts are holding in place. But even in this uncertainty, you are not left alone. Almost immediately, there is presence. Sometimes it is felt before it is seen, a warmth, a quiet pulse of reassurance that seems to surround you from every direction. Then, as your awareness adjusts, forms begin to take shape. They may be faces you know well, loved ones who have gone before you, or they may be figures you cannot quite place, yet they feel more familiar than anyone you ever met in life. These are your helpers, your guides, the ones who have come to meet you in this crossing. They do not rush you, and they do not demand that you move on before you are ready. Their very presence communicates what words cannot, that you are safe, that nothing essential has been lost, and that the journey is still unfolding. For some, these guides appear as they remember them. A grandmother still in her favorite dress, a friend with the same smile they had in life. For others, they may appear as beings of light, their features softened and luminous, or as symbolic figures drawn from one's spiritual beliefs. The form they take is not important, it is the recognition, the deep sense of connection, that matters. They know you, they love you, and they are here to help you remember where you are and why you have come. As the awareness of the physical world fades, you begin to notice that your body is no longer bound by the rules you once knew. Movement is effortless, thought itself seems to carry you from one place to another. There is no weight, no strain, no ache or fatigue. The boundaries of form are softer now, less defined, as if your very shape responds to your state of mind. If you think of yourself as you were at 30, you may appear that way. If you picture yourself in full health, that is what you become. This is the non-physical body, a subtle, energetic form that reflects the consciousness within it. At first, this can be strange. Some souls instinctively try to walk, to speak, to breathe as they once did, only to realize that none of these things are necessary anymore. Others may attempt to touch the physical world, to reach out to loved ones who cannot see or hear them. It is here that your guides gently intervene. They show you how to shift your focus away from the material and toward the reality that is now opening before you. They may lead you to a place of light, a threshold, a kind of gateway where the sights, sounds, and sensations of the earthly plane give way to something far more expansive. In this stage, the pace of adjustment is deeply personal. For some, minutes in this realm are enough to release the hold of the physical life. For others, it may feel like days or weeks before the mind accepts the truth of what has happened. Those who have lived with a strong attachment to the material world, to possessions, to roles, to unresolved relationships, sometimes linger near the familiar, watching over homes, workplaces, or loved ones. This is not punishment, it is simply a reflection of the soul's readiness to move forward. Guides remain nearby, patiently waiting for the moment when the soul turns toward them and takes the next step. It is during this orientation that many are shown scenes or images designed to help them understand where they are. A mist may clear to reveal a landscape of incredible beauty, fields, mountains, gardens, or cities of light, each uniquely tailored to the soul's own sense of peace. Others may find themselves in a vast hall or open space where the atmosphere itself feels alive with welcome. These settings are not illusions in the sense of falsehood. They are transitional environments, shaped both by the soul's consciousness and by the guiding intelligence of those who assist the newly arrived. They are familiar enough to soothe, yet expansive enough to hint at what lies beyond. One of the most important aspects of this first stage is the release of fear. Fear constricts the perception, narrowing the field of what the soul can see and feel. Without it, the senses open, and the brilliance of the spiritual realm becomes clearer. Guides work subtly to dissolve this fear, often by radiating acceptance and unconditional love. The newly arrived soul begins to understand, sometimes wordlessly, sometimes through gentle telepathic exchange, that there is nothing to dread, nothing to defend against. What comes next is not an end, but a continuation in a higher octave of being. For those who struggled in life or faced sudden, traumatic deaths, this orientation is especially crucial. They may arrive in a state of shock, still carrying the vibrations of fear, pain, or confusion. Here, the guides may bring them into a space of rest, almost like a healing chamber, where the soul can recover from the intensity of its last moments on earth. In this space, there is no rush. Time, as it was once experienced, no longer applies. The soul remains here until it feels whole enough to take in the new reality without resistance. Gradually, the focus shifts from the place left behind to the path ahead. The pull of the physical world lessens, replaced by a growing curiosity about where the journey leads. The soul begins to sense that there is an order to this process, that there is purpose in each stage. What felt like a loss now feels like an arrival. The realization dawns that the world just left was not the whole story. It was only one chapter in a much larger and far more intricate book. By the end of this first stage, there is a new equilibrium. The soul knows it has passed from one state to another. It understands, at least in part, that it is more than the body it once inhabited, more than the identity it once held. Surrounded by those who love and guide it, it stands ready to step fully into the next realm, where the deeper work of review, healing, and preparation will begin. What might have been feared as a final ending has revealed itself to be a threshold, the first step into a reality that has been waiting patiently, just beyond the edge of sight, all along. When you take your first steps beyond the threshold, one of the most profound experiences you encounter is the life review. It is not a judgment in the way you might have been taught to fear, no robed figure standing over you with a list of your sins and virtues. It is something far more intimate, far more revealing, and far more transformative. It unfolds not as a sequence of accusations, but as a panoramic unveiling of your entire life, every choice, every action, every word, every thought, all laid out before you in astonishing clarity. There is no hiding from it, because there is no need to hide. In this realm, truth is not a weapon to wound you, but a light to help you see. The life review is not bound by the linear march of time. You are not forced to relive your life moment by moment as you did before. Instead, It comes as a vast and interconnected vision, where the beginning, middle, and end of your earthly journey exist all at once. You can step into any moment instantly. You can see the web of consequences that rippled out from your decisions, both great and small. An act of kindness you barely remembered may reveal itself as a turning point in someone else's life. A careless word you thought harmless might show the lingering shadow it left behind. What makes this review so extraordinary is that you are not simply watching from your own perspective. You are drawn into the hearts and minds of those you affected. You feel their joy when your love lifted them, and you feel their pain when your actions caused harm. It is not abstract, it is visceral. If you made someone feel seen and valued, you will feel the warmth that bloomed in them. If you ignored someone's suffering, you will feel the ache of that neglect, as if it were your own. This is not punishment, it is understanding. You are not being shamed. You are being shown, in the most direct way possible, the true impact of your presence in the world. In this space, no detail is too small to matter. You may witness the way a simple smile to a stranger on a difficult day became a lifeline for them. You may also see how a moment of anger you quickly forgot stayed with someone for years. The review is not about elevating the grand gestures above the small ones. Here, you learn that every action, every thought, every word has weight. The tiniest ripple can travel farther than you ever imagined. You are shown this not to overwhelm you, but to awaken you to the power you always had, the power you still have, and will carry with you into every future life. There is no condemnation here. The beings who accompany you, guides, loved ones, or presences you cannot yet name, radiate only compassion. They do not scold you for your mistakes. They help you understand them. They are like teachers who know that learning often comes from experience, and they want you to see clearly so you can grow. The love in their presence is so complete that even as you face the pain you've caused, you are not crushed by it. You are supported in holding it, feeling it, and learning from it. Perhaps the most humbling realization during the life review is that you often had no idea of the depth of your influence. You may see that a single conversation you thought insignificant altered the course of someone's life. You may learn that moments you regretted deeply were the very experiences that helped someone else find their own strength or compassion. This understanding removes the rigid labels of good and bad, and replaces them with something far richer, a sense of the interconnectedness of all things, and the truth that life is a tapestry woven from countless threads of cause and effect. You also come to see yourself differently. You understand why you acted as you did, not to excuse your choices, but to illuminate them. You remember the fears that held you back, the wounds that shaped your reactions, the moments when you could have chosen differently if you had known better. This is not about self-condemnation, but about recognizing the patterns you carried and the lessons they offered you. You are invited to release the shame that might have haunted you in life, and to replace it with a deeper commitment to act with greater awareness in the future. The life review can be tender and uplifting, but it can also be challenging. Seeing yourself through the eyes of others can strip away illusions you clung to in life. You may realize that someone you believed you had wronged deeply had long since forgiven you. You may also see that someone you thought you had helped carried wounds you never recognized. The truth, in its fullness, is never simple, but here, truth is always healing. It makes you whole in ways that the illusions of self-protection never could. What's most remarkable is that you are not a passive observer in this process. You engage with it, you ask questions, you are free to revisit certain moments to understand them more fully. You can trace the path of an action through time, seeing the echoes it created in other people's lives, and even in your own future experiences. It is like exploring the architecture of your own soul, seeing how each choice built the structure of who you became. In the physical world, you often live with a narrowed view, caught up in the immediacy of your own needs, fears, and desires. But here, the life review opens your awareness to the vast network of connections that you are part of. You begin to see life not as a series of isolated events, but as an intricate flow of energy and intention. You see that love and fear are the two great currents that move through every interaction, and you recognize, with profound clarity, which one you allowed to guide you more often. This understanding is not the end of the process. Once you have seen your life in this way, you are faced with a choice. How will you carry this awareness forward? Will you return to physical life with a renewed commitment to live differently? Will you take on the role of guide for others, offering them the wisdom you have gained? The review is both a reflection and a preparation, shaping the path you will walk next. The beauty of the life review lies in its honesty and its compassion. You are not defined by your worst moments, nor are you limited to your best. You are seen in your wholeness, the flawed, beautiful, ever-growing soul that you are. And in being seen this way, you are reminded of a truth that perhaps you forgot in life. You are capable of becoming more than you have been, and you are loved through every step of that becoming. When it ends, you carry with you not only the memories of what you saw, but the feeling of it, the deep knowing of what it means to live in alignment with the highest parts of yourself. That knowing stays with you, shaping the choices you will make in whatever comes next. And perhaps, when you find yourself back in the world of flesh and time, you will live with a greater gentleness, a deeper awareness, and a willingness to offer others the kind of understanding that was offered to you in that vast and luminous review of a lifetime. The place between lives is not an empty void, nor is it some far-off heaven or hell hidden in the distant reaches of the cosmos. It is here, all around you now, existing just beyond the narrow range of frequencies the physical senses can detect. This dimension is often called the astral plane, though words can only hint at what it truly is. It is a realm of pure consciousness, a living ocean of energy and light, where thought and emotion shape the very fabric of reality. To enter it is to step into a place where the rules you once lived by no longer apply. Solid walls dissolve, time loosens its grip, and space itself feels less like a fixed container, and more like a fluid, responsive presence. Everything here is shaped not by material laws, but by vibration. The astral plane is not a single, uniform expanse. It is layered, like the currents of a great sea, with each layer carrying its own frequency and character. Some of these levels are luminous and expansive, filled with colors and tones beyond human imagination. Others are denser, dimmer, shaped by the unresolved emotions and attachments of those who dwell there. Where you find yourself within this spectrum depends entirely on the state of your inner being. Here, you cannot hide behind a mask or pretend to be what you are not. The frequency of your consciousness, the harmony or discord you carry within, naturally draws you to the place that matches it. For those whose lives have been centered on compassion, truth, and selfless love, the ascent into the higher realms of the astral plane can feel like walking into a sunrise that never fades. These regions are alive, with music that seems to flow through you as much as around you, and the air itself feels charged with vitality. Landscapes may unfold before you that are at once familiar and utterly new. Gardens overflowing with impossible blossoms, crystalline waters that shimmer with inner light, skies that glow with living colors. There is a sense of belonging here, of being fully seen and welcomed. The souls you meet radiate warmth, and communication happens effortlessly, thought to thought, heart to heart. In contrast, souls who leave the physical world burdened by anger, greed, fear, or bitterness may find themselves in lower vibrational states. These places are not punishments handed down by an outside power. They are the natural outpicturing of the energy those souls have carried within. The scenery here may be dim or barren, shaped by the narrowness of thought and the heaviness of unresolved emotions. Yet even these states are temporary. The astral plane, no matter the level, is a place of growth. Those in these denser regions are not abandoned. They are met by helpers who patiently guide them toward release and healing, offering glimpses of higher states that they may move into when they are ready. The most profound truth about the astral plane is that it is responsive. In the physical world, thoughts and desires require time, effort, and material action to take shape. Here, the gap between intention and manifestation is nearly non-existent. Think of a place, and you are there. Focus on a form, and it appears. Hold on to fear, and it wraps around you like a fog. This responsiveness makes the astral a perfect mirror for self-discovery. Every shift in thought or feeling is reflected instantly in the environment, allowing the soul to see itself with a clarity impossible in the slower, denser physical realm. Because of this, no two souls experience the astral plane in exactly the same way. For some, it is a place of open fields and clear skies. For others, it might appear as a great city of light, filled with learning halls, meeting places, and sanctuaries for healing. Many are drawn to familiar settings from their physical life, a beloved childhood home, a favorite stretch of coastline. Yet here those places are transformed, imbued with a depth and beauty that transcends anything on earth. The environment you encounter is not assigned to you by decree. It is the natural outflow of your own consciousness, meeting the living substance of this realm. Within this plane, vibrational levels are not just about scenery, they are about access. Higher states open the door to greater knowledge, deeper connection, and more expansive creation. Souls in the brighter, finer frequencies often move freely, exploring realms of astonishing subtlety and working with energies that shape both their own evolution and the growth of others. Those in lower states may feel confined at first, not by walls, but by the limits of their own awareness. As they release the patterns that weigh them down, those limits dissolve, and the wider astral becomes available to them. Here, movement between levels is possible, but it is never forced. A soul in a lower frequency cannot simply will itself into a higher one without undergoing the inner change that naturally raises its vibration. Likewise, a soul in a high state may choose to lower its frequency temporarily in order to visit and assist others, but it does so consciously, without losing the awareness of the greater reality it knows. This fluidity is part of what makes the astral plane such a dynamic, living place. It is not a static afterlife where souls remain frozen in a single condition. It is an environment designed for continual transformation. One of the most remarkable aspects of this realm is the way it erases the illusion of separation. In the physical world, people often feel divided, by distance, by culture, by belief. In the astral, the sense of being apart fades. You can feel the life force in every other soul, and they can feel it in you. Communication is instantaneous, not limited by words or language. The barriers that once kept you guarded dissolve, and what remains is a recognition of shared essence. In higher states, this recognition is so complete that to harm another would feel as senseless as harming yourself. Even in the lower states, where shadows linger, the seeds of this unity remain. A soul struggling with its own heaviness can still feel the quiet pull toward connection, toward the light that others radiate. This is why no one is truly lost in the astral. The realm itself is structured to guide every being upward, gently but persistently, toward greater awareness. Lessons here are learned not through coercion but through experience. A soul sees, feels, and lives the direct results of its own inner state until the desire to grow becomes stronger than the desire to remain as it is. For many, the astral plane becomes a place of preparation. Once the initial orientation is complete, the soul begins to explore, to meet others, to study universal laws, and to understand more deeply the patterns it has carried through its incarnations. Teachers and companions appear, sometimes from your most recent life, sometimes from lifetimes so distant you had forgotten them entirely. In the higher frequencies, these relationships are marked by a sense of equality and shared purpose. No one is above or below another in worth. The only difference lies in the level of awareness and the willingness to serve. As you move through this realm, you begin to understand that the astral is not the final destination. It is a vital stage in an ongoing journey, a bridge between the density of the physical and the even subtler planes that lie beyond. What you experience here prepares you for those higher states. By learning to shape your environment through harmony rather than discord, by raising your vibration through understanding and compassion, you are aligning yourself with realities where creation is even more immediate and connection even more complete. And so the astral plane stands as both mirror and school, sanctuary and proving ground. It reflects who you are with perfect honesty, but it also offers endless opportunities to become more. It holds spaces of breathtaking beauty for those ready to dwell in them, and it holds spaces of challenge for those still wrestling with their inner shadows. It is a realm where every step forward is your own, where growth is both the path and the reward, and where the soul learns, perhaps more clearly than anywhere else, that it carries its true home within. In the realm between lives, existence is not a state of idle drifting or endless rest. It is alive with purpose, movement, and learning. The soul, freed from the limitations of a physical body, enters a stage of expansion where knowledge flows not only through study, but through direct experience, in ways far beyond what earthly education can offer. These are the cosmic schools of learning, vast, luminous centers where wisdom is not merely taught, but absorbed into the very essence of your being. They are not schools, in the rigid, institutional sense of the word, but more like living environments, shaped by understanding itself. Every structure, every sound, every beam of light resonates with the intention to teach, to awaken, to refine. In these spaces, there are no desks or textbooks, no lectures to memorize for a distant exam. Learning here is immersive and total. If you are studying compassion, you don't read about it, you feel it, you radiate it, you experience what it does to your own vibration and the vibration of those around you. If you are exploring the universal laws that govern creation, you don't only hear them explained, you watch them unfold in real time, shaping the environments around you according to the patterns you project. The astral substance is infinitely responsive, allowing souls to witness how their thoughts, intentions, and emotions ripple outward, altering the fabric of reality itself. This is not theoretical knowledge, it is lived truth. Every soul arrives at a different level of readiness. Some come into these learning realms still fresh from a physical life, their consciousness adjusting to the new freedom it has found. Others return after long periods between incarnations, already attuned to higher truths and ready to explore them further. The learning process is not imposed, it is chosen. You are drawn to the lessons that align with your current stage of growth, much like a river naturally flows into the channels carved for it. No one tells you what you must study, yet you find yourself irresistibly drawn toward the knowledge your soul craves. These schools are organized not by hierarchy, but by resonance. You find yourself in the company of others whose vibrations match your own. This creates an environment of harmony, where each participant both learns from and contributes to the growth of the group. The mentors who guide these processes are not figures of authority in the human sense, they are elder souls, beings who have walked further along the path and carry within them a clarity that naturally inspires. Their presence is magnetic, yet never forceful. They teach by example, often without words, radiating qualities like patience, joy, and deep understanding in a way that awakens those same qualities in you. Some lessons focus on the great universal principles that shape all realms of existence. The law of cause and effect is not explained in abstract terms, but demonstrated in how an intention takes form instantly in the subtle matter of the astral world. The law of resonance is revealed in how like attracts like, not just in thought or action, but in the very frequency of being you hold within yourself. Other studies revolve around creativity, not creativity limited to art or music, but the deeper creativity of consciousness itself. Here, you learn how worlds are shaped, how energy flows, and how your own awareness can harmonize with the larger symphony of creation. Creativity in these higher spaces is not for personal glory, it is an act of service. You might learn to weave structures of light that help heal a soul still recovering from a difficult incarnation. You might assist in creating environments that will nurture those who are entering the astral realm for the first time, offering beauty and safety as they orient themselves. You might even take part in shaping the symbolic scenarios that will later become part of someone's dream, planting seeds of guidance they can draw upon in their waking life. Every act of creation here is purposeful, and every purpose is tied to the evolution of consciousness. Mentorship is a central part of this stage. Souls who have reached a certain level of understanding often take on the role of guide for others, not as an obligation, but as a natural expression of their own joy in sharing. These mentors are deeply patient, knowing that growth unfolds at its own pace. They meet each soul exactly where it is, offering the next step without overwhelming or rushing. Sometimes they appear in forms that are familiar to the learner, to build trust. Other times they take on symbolic appearances that embody the very lesson they are here to share. They can move effortlessly between the role of teacher and companion, blending wisdom with a warmth that dissolves any lingering fear. For many, One of the most profound aspects of the cosmic schools is the realization that learning here is mutual. The mentors themselves are continually expanding through the act of guiding, as each interaction offers new perspectives and insights. The exchange is a dance, not a one-way flow of information. This mirrors the deeper truth that all souls, no matter how advanced, are still on the path of becoming. Even those who seem radiant with wisdom are themselves students of higher principles, learning from beings whose awareness extends far beyond theirs. In these schools, time is not marked in the way it is on Earth. A single moment of realization can feel like it contains years' worth of growth, while an extended period of immersion in a particular lesson may feel timeless. Progress is measured not by how quickly you move through the curriculum, but by the depth of transformation you experience. Sometimes, a soul may choose to remain in a certain area of study for what would amount to centuries in physical time, refining and integrating its understanding before moving on. Others may pass through a sequence of lessons rapidly, propelled by the momentum of their awakening. There is also a recognition that the learning here is preparation for action. The insights gained in these realms are meant to be lived, whether in the astral plane or in a future incarnation. Some souls, after periods of deep study, take on missions of service that draw them into the lives of those still in physical form. They may act as unseen guides, as sources of inspiration, or as protectors whose influence is felt, but not recognized. Others may focus on assisting souls in the lower astral states, using what they have learned to help lift others toward higher frequencies. The cosmic schools are not places you visit only once. Across lifetimes, you return again and again, each time entering at the level that matches your current development. The knowledge and skills you acquire remain part of you, carried forward into every future life. Even while incarnated, flashes of this higher learning can emerge as sudden clarity, intuitive knowing, or an unexplainable mastery of certain abilities. These moments are the echoes of lessons learned between lives, surfacing in the midst of your earthly journey. Perhaps the most beautiful quality of these schools is their atmosphere of unconditional acceptance. No soul is judged for what it does not yet know. There is no failure here, only the understanding that all learning has its season. The process is guided by love, not by pressure, and every step is celebrated, whether it is a giant leap in awareness or a small shift in perspective. This creates an environment where growth is natural and joyful, not forced. In the cosmic schools, you come to realize that learning is not just about acquiring information, it is about becoming. Each lesson shapes your very being, refining your vibration, expanding your awareness, and aligning you more closely with the greater whole. And when you eventually leave these spaces, it is never an ending. It is simply the next step in a journey without limits, carrying forward the light you have gathered to share it wherever the path leads next. One of the most extraordinary realizations you come to after crossing into the spirit world is that life there is not a state of idleness. You do not simply float in a haze of light, basking in peace with nothing to do. The soul remains active, engaged, and deeply purposeful. And one of the most meaningful ways that purpose expresses itself is through service. Service in the spirit world is not an obligation imposed on you. It is a natural outpouring of the love, wisdom, and compassion you have cultivated over many lifetimes. You begin to understand that growth and fulfillment are most deeply experienced when you contribute to the growth and healing of others. When you first arrive, you may find yourself on the receiving end of such service. Guides and loved ones come to greet you, offering comfort and orientation as you adjust to your new reality. They help you shed the shock or confusion that sometimes follows physical death. They show you how to move, how to think in this freer state, how to navigate an environment where intention shapes reality. These beings radiate such unconditional acceptance that you feel no fear in their presence. They answer your questions without judgment and help you remember that you are not lost. You have simply changed the room you are in. This kind of assistance is especially vital for those who arrive disoriented. Some cross over suddenly, not realizing at first that their physical life has ended. Others carry emotional wounds or heavy attachments that cloud their awareness. In these cases, the service of experienced souls becomes a lifeline. They know how to approach gently, how to reach through the fog, how to guide a soul into understanding without force. Sometimes this guidance is as simple as sitting with a soul in silence until they are ready to listen. Other times, it involves leading them into spaces of light and rest where their energy can begin to heal. Over time, as you settle into this new way of being, you may feel a calling to take on this role yourself. The compassion you were shown awakens a desire to offer the same to others. You begin to help new arrivals, greeting them as you were once greeted, becoming a steady presence for them as they find their bearings. Each act of service deepens your own understanding, for in helping others, you revisit the lessons of your own journey. You see in them the same fears you once carried, the same longing for reassurance, and you recognize how far you have come. Service in the spirit world does not stop at helping those who have just crossed over. Many souls choose to act as guides for those still living in physical form. This is not the same as constant interference or control. The living must still make their own choices, but rather a gentle offering of insight, encouragement, and inspiration. Sometimes this guidance comes through dreams, where your presence is felt as a comforting figure or a voice that offers clarity. Sometimes it comes as sudden intuition, a quiet nudge in the heart that helps someone take the next step they need to take. You may be drawn to assist someone you knew in life, a child, a partner, a dear friend, or you may be guided towards someone you have never met physically but are connected to through the greater web of souls. There is a deep joy in this work. You see the ripples of your influence, helping someone make a kinder choice, avoid unnecessary suffering, or find the courage to follow a path they had long avoided. These moments are deeply fulfilling, for they remind you that love truly transcends the boundary between worlds. In some cases, your service may be part of a larger effort, involving many souls working together toward a shared purpose. For example, there are groups in the spirit world devoted to inspiring human creativity, scientific discovery, or social change. There are those who focus on helping heal the emotional wounds of the living, those who work with children, and those who bring comfort to the grieving. The roles are as varied as the needs of the physical world, and each soul is drawn to the work that resonates most with their nature and growth. This service is not one-sided. While you offer help to others, the act of doing so accelerates your own evolution. In the spirit world, learning does not come only from personal study or reflection. It comes from active participation in the lives of others. By guiding, teaching, and supporting, you expand your capacity for empathy, patience, and unconditional love. You encounter challenges that stretch you, for not every soul is ready to receive what you offer. Some resist help, clinging tightly to the patterns and beliefs that keep them bound. In these moments, you learn to release the need to control outcomes, trusting that every soul moves at its own pace. Over time, this work shapes you into something more. Your understanding deepens, your ability to hold light steady in the face of darkness strengthens, and your presence becomes more radiant. In this way, service and evolution are intertwined. Each act of giving refines you, and the more you grow, the more you are able to give. There is no separation between helping others and helping yourself, for in the vast interconnectedness of all souls, the growth of one contributes to the growth of all. Sometimes, you may even choose to assist from a distance, working with someone in physical life, without them ever consciously realizing it. You might place opportunities in their path, inspire others to reach out to them, or simply hold a vibration of love around them as they move through difficult times. These unseen acts are no less powerful than the most direct guidance. They are part of the quiet magic of the spirit world, the constant, loving influence that helps humanity move forward in ways it often cannot see. There are also moments when your service extends to souls still in the lower realms of the spirit world, those caught in cycles of fear or attachment. Reaching into these places requires courage and steadiness, for the heaviness there can be palpable. Yet, to guide a soul out of such a state and watch them rise toward the light is among the most rewarding experiences you can have. It is a reminder that no one is ever truly lost, and that love is the most powerful force in existence. As you continue to serve, you realize that this is not work you are ever forced to do, but something you cannot imagine not doing. The more you give, the more you feel aligned with the deepest truth of your being. You are not simply existing in the spirit world, you are participating in it, helping to weave the fabric of connection between realms, contributing to the evolution of souls across all planes of life. In this, you find purpose beyond measure, and when the time comes for you to take your next step, whether that is to reincarnate, to continue your work in spirit, or to move into even higher realms, you carry with you the knowing that service is not merely an act, but a way of being that will follow you wherever you go. Time, as you knew it on earth, is a straight line. One moment leads to the next in a steady march, measured by clocks, calendars, and the steady turning of the seasons. In the physical world, you are bound to this sequence. The past cannot be altered, the future cannot be reached ahead of schedule, and the present slips away as soon as you notice it. But when you cross into the astral realm, this structure dissolves almost immediately. Time here is not a rigid path, it is a fluid, malleable current that bends and shifts according to consciousness. The soul, freed from the dense material vibration, steps into a space where the past, present, and future seem to exist side by side, like colors blending in a single canvas. You can move among these moments as easily as you might stroll through different rooms in a familiar house. The first thing many souls notice is the absence of the pressure that time placed on them in the physical. There are no deadlines, no hours to keep, no fear that life is running out. Without the ticking of a clock, awareness stretches and deepens. A single instant can feel like an eternity of insight, while what would be years on earth might pass in what feels like the blink of an eye. You can linger in a conversation for what seems like days, yet return to find that no measurable time has passed in the physical world. This elasticity allows the soul to immerse fully in experiences without the constant pull of what comes next. Here, the pace is not dictated by the movement of the sun or the phases of the moon, but by the rhythm of your own growth. Because time is tied to consciousness in the astral, it unfolds differently for every soul. Those who are quick to adapt to their new state, who have released the attachments and unfinished business of their most recent life, may feel ready to move forward almost immediately. They review their experiences, draw the lessons, and begin preparing for the next incarnation without delay. To an observer in the physical, they might return to Earth in a matter of months or a few short years. Others, however, take far longer. Some remain in the astral for what, from the perspective of the physical plane, would be centuries. Yet to them, it does not feel like centuries have passed. Their experience is one of timeless unfolding, of allowing themselves to absorb, heal, and explore until the next chapter naturally calls. The reasons for these differences are as varied as the souls themselves. A soul might reincarnate quickly because it is eager to continue a particular thread of growth, to build upon momentum gained in its last life. Some return swiftly to rejoin loved ones who will soon incarnate again, ensuring that key relationships and shared lessons are not lost. Others are drawn back because there is a narrow window in physical time where certain conditions align for their next stage of learning. When that window appears, they step through it, weaving their next life into the larger tapestry of their soul group's evolution. On the other hand, extended time between lives serves a deeper purpose for those who need it. For some, the last incarnation may have been especially challenging or traumatic, leaving the soul in need of rest and repair. The astral offers places of profound restoration, environments where the damage carried from the physical can be soothed and transformed. These periods of healing are not idle retreats. They are essential for integrating the lessons of hardship without being overwhelmed by them. In such cases, reincarnating too soon could hinder growth, while waiting allows the soul to return stronger, wiser, and more fully prepared. There are also souls who use this extended time for study and exploration. In the astral realm, the schools and halls of learning are always open, and knowledge flows in ways that the physical mind can barely imagine. A soul might spend what would be decades or centuries in physical time studying universal laws, working with mentors, or perfecting certain skills of creation and guidance. These long intervals are not delays, they are periods of conscious preparation for lifetimes of greater purpose. When such a soul does return to Earth, it often carries a depth of wisdom that is felt even by those who cannot explain it. Another reason for the fluidity of time here is the way the astral connects to the larger architecture of existence. The physical world is only one layer in a vast, multi-dimensional reality, and the astral is a bridge between worlds. From here, you can touch the patterns of many timelines, sense the possibilities of futures not yet chosen, and even glimpse past incarnations, as if they are still unfolding somewhere in the vastness of creation. This perspective makes the linear view of time seem almost quaint, a useful illusion for the physical but far from the truth of how reality works. It also means that decisions about reincarnation are made with a broader awareness. The soul can choose not only when to return, but under what conditions and in which era its lessons will best be served. In the physical, waiting can feel passive, but in the astral, waiting is active. A soul who spends what seems like centuries here is not idle. It might be serving as a guide for others, assisting in the orientation of newly arrived souls, or working within the subtle layers of the astral to shape events that will ripple into the physical plane. It might be part of the preparation for a major shift in consciousness within its soul group, or even in the broader human collective. Every moment, no matter how long it seems to human reckoning, is part of a purposeful unfolding. This fluidity also explains why, in some cases, a soul may incarnate into a time period in the past relative to its last physical life, at least from the perspective of earthly chronology. The soul's movement is not bound to the forward motion of history. It chooses the setting, the family, and the circumstances that will best meet its current needs for growth, regardless of where that falls on the physical timeline. In the astral, time is more like a great wheel than a straight road, and you can step onto the spoke that will carry you where you need to go. Perhaps one of the most liberating aspects of this understanding is the realization that there is no universal deadline for growth. You are not in a race to evolve before the clock runs out, because in truth, the clock does not exist here. What matters is not how quickly you move, but how deeply you grow. For some, this means lifetimes that follow one after another in rapid succession, each building upon the last. For others, it means long stretches of astral exploration and refinement before the call to return is answered. Both paths are equally valid, for the soul measures progress in terms of transformation, not in terms of time. From the vantage point of the astral, time is simply a tool, one that can be stretched, compressed, or set aside entirely to serve the needs of the journey. It is no longer a prison, but a fluid, living element you can shape. And in this freedom, you begin to understand that the soul's journey is infinite. Whether you return quickly to the physical world, or remain in the higher realms for what seems like ages, you are always exactly where you need to be, moving at the pace that your deepest growth requires. Here, in the fluid nature of time, the pressure of urgency fades, replaced by the quiet certainty that all paths lead forward, and all of them lead home. There comes a moment in the spirit world when your awareness expands so greatly that you find yourself standing before something vast and incomprehensible, a field of knowing so complete that it defies the limits of human language. Many have called it the Akashic records, though names are only faint shadows of what it truly is. Imagine a library so boundless that its shelves stretch beyond sight in every direction, yet every piece of information is alive, moving, vibrating with the energy of truth. This is not a library of ink and paper. It is a living archive, where every thought, every word, every action, and every possibility is stored in patterns of light and sound. It contains the record of every soul, every lifetime, every choice made and unmade. It holds not only what has been but what could be, the unending spectrum of potential. When you first enter this space, the immensity of it can be overwhelming. You feel the weight of its wisdom pressing gently around you, not as a burden, but as an invitation to remember. You are not a stranger here. A part of you has always been connected to this field, even during your time in the physical world. The difference now is that the barriers of the body and the density of human perception have fallen away, and you can finally perceive it directly. Access is not given to satisfy idle curiosity. It comes when you are ready to receive the truth in a way that will serve your growth, and when you are prepared to use that truth with responsibility and compassion. The Akashic records are not something you read in the way you might scan a page. You experience them. When you focus on a particular lifetime, it does not appear as a dry list of events. You step into it. You feel the air, the ground beneath your feet, the emotions that ran through you at that time. You see through the eyes you once had, yet you also carry the expanded awareness of the soul you are now. You can watch yourself make choices and understand, with new clarity, why you made them. You see the consequences they created, not only for you but for others connected to that moment. There is no need for speculation here. The truth is laid bare, illuminated in perfect detail. Sometimes you are guided to review lifetimes that are directly connected to the lessons you are integrating now. You may revisit a time when you carried great power and see how you used it, for creation or for harm. You may step into a life where you struggled against limitations and learn how those challenges shaped your resilience. You may even explore lives shared with souls you know now, seeing the many roles you have played for one another: parent, friend, adversary, partner, all part of a complex and beautiful web of growth. This is not to create nostalgia or regret, but to give you a deeper understanding of the patterns your soul has carried across time. The records also hold the paths not taken. You can see the moments in your life where different choices could have led you in entirely new directions. You witness the versions of yourself that unfolded along those timelines, each one real within the field of possibility. This is not to burden you with what-ifs, but to help you understand that life is never as fixed as it appears. Every choice opens one door and closes another, and yet the soul always finds its way to the lessons it needs. This awareness deepens your compassion for yourself and others, for you begin to see that each of you is navigating an infinite web of possibilities, doing the best you can with the awareness you have at any given moment. The Akashic records also reveal glimpses of what is yet to come. These are not predictions etched in stone, but potential futures shaped by the choices you and others are making now. They appear more like flowing rivers than fixed roads, each current shifting with every change in intention or action. By exploring these currents, you can see where certain paths may lead if they remain unchanged, and you can also see how altering your perspective or your actions can redirect the flow entirely. This is not fortune-telling. It is the art of understanding cause and effect on a grand scale, and using that understanding to align more closely with your highest purpose. Accessing these records is not always easy. The truth they reveal is complete, stripped of the distortions that memory or emotion can create. You may see moments that are difficult to face, actions you would rather forget, or harm you did not realize you caused. Yet even here, there is no condemnation. The very fabric of the records is woven with compassion. You are shown the truth not to wound you, but to heal you. In seeing everything clearly, you are given the power to release what no longer serves you, to make amends where you can, and to carry the lessons forward. Healing in this space can be profound. A pattern that haunted you through multiple lifetimes may dissolve in a single moment of understanding. A wound you carried for centuries may close when you see its origin, and finally forgive yourself or another. Sometimes the healing comes in recognizing the deeper purpose behind your most painful experiences, seeing how they pushed you toward growth you would never have chosen otherwise, but now would never trade away. The records help you integrate these lessons fully, so they become part of the strength and wisdom you carry into every future life. In some cases, you may be allowed to share the insight you gain here with others. As you grow, you might return to the physical realm, or reach out to those still living, offering guidance rooted in the truths you've witnessed. You do this not by overwhelming them with visions they are not ready to understand, but by planting seeds, small insights, gentle nudges, moments of clarity that help them take their own steps toward greater awareness. The more time you spend within the Akashic records, the more you realize that they are not separate from you. They are the memory of the universe, and you are part of that memory. Every thought you have, every choice you make, every act of love or fear you release into the world becomes part of this great archive. It is both humbling and empowering to know that you are constantly writing your own entry in the eternal story, and that the quality of what you write is entirely in your hands. Leaving the records is not like walking out of a building. They remain with you, their presence alive in your awareness, shaping how you see yourself and others. You return to your path in the spirit world with a sense of expanded vision, knowing where you have been, where you are now, and the countless ways you might grow from here. And perhaps the greatest gift they offer is this: the unshakable knowing that you are never lost, never without guidance, and never truly separate from the wisdom of all that has been, all that is, and all that could ever be. From the moment you first existed as an individual spark of consciousness, you were never truly alone. Long before your first incarnation into the physical world, you were already part of a living tapestry of souls, bound together by a shared origin, a shared frequency, and a shared purpose. These are your soul family, the group of beings whose growth is intertwined with yours across lifetimes, realms, and dimensions. In the physical world, this connection is often sensed more than understood. You meet someone for the first time and feel an immediate recognition, a comfort that seems to bypass logic. Their presence feels like home, even if you cannot remember why. That is the echo of a bond that stretches far beyond the limits of a single lifetime. In the astral realm, the existence of these soul groups is unmistakable. Here, the amnesia that veils your earthly awareness is gone, and the faces you meet are not strangers, but companions you have known through countless chapters of experience. These relationships are not bound by blood in the physical sense, though they often manifest as family, close friends, or significant figures in your earthly life. Instead, they are bonds of resonance. You are drawn together again and again because your growth is best served in each other's company. Sometimes that companionship is harmonious and supportive. Other times, it is challenging and demanding, because the lessons you agreed to explore together require friction to awaken new understanding. Within these soul groups, roles shift over time. The person who is your parent in one life might become your child in the next. A sibling may return as a trusted friend. A great love might return as a rival or even an adversary, pushing you into situations that force the unfolding of strength, compassion, or humility. These changes are not random. They are chosen before each incarnation, crafted to weave experiences that will allow each soul in the group to evolve in the ways it most needs. From the limited perspective of Earth, such changes can be bewildering, but from the broader view of the astral, they are seen as acts of mutual service. Recognizing a member of your soul group in physical life often happens in ways that cannot be explained by logic alone. There might be an instant familiarity in their eyes, a deep ease in their presence, or a sense of connection that seems to bypass the normal process of building trust. Conversations flow as if continuing something begun long ago. You may also experience the opposite, a strong and immediate reaction of discomfort or tension without any apparent cause. This too can signal a deep soul connection, one that is tied to unresolved experiences from past incarnations. The intensity you feel is the magnetic pull of shared history rising to the surface. These bonds are not limited to just a handful of souls. While every soul has a primary group, a circle of beings it is most closely aligned with, there are also secondary and even tertiary connections. These are like extended family, beings you may not incarnate with as frequently but with whom you share threads of purpose and influence. Sometimes your group and another will interweave for a period of shared work, creating larger networks of collaboration that serve a collective evolution. The connections ripple outward, linking you to far more beings than you might imagine, all participating in the same vast movement toward greater awareness. In the astral, soul groups often work together in ways that are impossible on Earth. Without the barriers of physical separation or the limitations of memory, you can coordinate with extraordinary precision. You might gather to review the events of your most recent lives, discussing what was learned and what still needs attention. You might plan future incarnations, deciding who will play which role and how those roles will intersect. These agreements are made with love and clarity, even when they involve challenges that, in the physical world, will feel painful or unfair. Every choice is aimed at creating the conditions for growth, both for the individual and for the group as a whole. Support within these groups is constant, even when it is not consciously perceived. Members who remain in the astral, while others incarnate, often take on the role of guide or protector. They may influence events subtly, nudge you toward certain choices, or offer comfort during moments of deep struggle. In dreams, you may meet them without recognizing their true identity, receiving reassurance or insight that feels as if it comes from nowhere. At times, they will arrange synchronicities, those seemingly chance encounters or perfectly timed events that shift the course of your life in meaningful ways. These interventions are rarely obvious, but they are always purposeful. The growth that happens within soul groups is not always smooth or pleasant. Because you are so closely tied, these relationships have a way of pressing your most sensitive points. A soul partner may take on the role of antagonist in one life to help you confront a fear you have avoided for centuries. Another may leave you through loss or betrayal, forcing you to discover strength or self-reliance you did not know you possessed. These experiences can feel harsh in the moment, but when viewed from the larger perspective, they are understood as acts of deep cooperation. It is often those who love you most who are willing to play the difficult roles, knowing the transformation they will spark is worth the temporary pain. Over countless lifetimes, these bonds deepen. You come to know one another not only in the joy of shared harmony, but in the resilience built through trials. This creates a trust that transcends any single incarnation. Even in lifetimes where you do not meet directly in the physical world, the connection remains. You may live on opposite sides of the earth, yet still feel the subtle influence of a soul companion's presence, a shared thought, a simultaneous insight, a sudden wave of peace that arrives without explanation. These eternal bonds are not meant to keep you bound in a closed circle. Soul groups are dynamic, expanding as each member grows. As you evolve, you draw new connections into the group, souls whose frequencies now align with yours because of the progress you have made. Likewise, members may move on to align more closely with other groups when their growth calls for a different environment. There is no ownership here, only the constant weaving and reweaving of connections that serve the highest good of all involved. The purpose of these groups is far greater than simply offering companionship across lifetimes. They are the foundation for shared growth, a framework through which lessons can be explored more deeply and more effectively. In working together, you accelerate one another's progress, each step forward by one member lifting the whole. When one heals, that healing ripples through the group. When one expands in awareness, the possibilities for all expand. In this way, soul groups act as amplifiers of growth, multiplying the impact of every individual's evolution. When you leave the physical plane and return to the astral, the reunion with your soul group is one of the most profound experiences you can have. There is no need for introductions or explanations. You are recognized instantly, not by appearance, but by the unique vibration of your essence. The joy of these reunions is not just in being together again, but in seeing the changes each has undergone. Every choice, every act of courage, every hard-won lesson is felt and celebrated by the whole. There is an unshakable knowing that you are part of something vast and eternal, and that nothing, not distance, not time, not even the forgetting that comes with incarnation, can break the bond you share. In truth, these connections are not merely a feature of the soul's journey, they are its very fabric. You are shaped by them, supported by them, and in turn, you help shape and support them. Across lifetimes, you may wear many faces, speak many languages, live under many skies, yet beneath it all, the same luminous thread ties you to those whose paths are forever entwined with yours. This is the quiet truth the soul carries through every birth and every death, that the journey is not a solitary one, and that the love and loyalty of your eternal companions will follow you into every world you will ever call home. There are places in the spirit world where the very air seems to hum with a gentle, living light, sanctuaries where the soul is bathed in an energy so pure that it feels like being wrapped in the embrace of the divine itself. These are the temples of healing and restoration, and their purpose is unlike anything you have ever experienced in the physical world. Here, the wounds you carried from earthly life, both visible and invisible, are met with a love so complete that even the deepest pain begins to loosen its hold. These temples are not built of stone or wood, yet they feel solid and real. Their structure is woven from luminous energy, shifting and flowing in harmony with the needs of those who enter. The walls seem to breathe, the colors pulse softly, and every sound is a vibration that brings balance and calm. When you first arrive, you may still carry the weight of your most recent lifetime. Even though the body has been left behind, the impressions of your experiences remain imprinted in the energy of your soul. Every hurt, every moment of fear, every act of violence endured or inflicted leaves a subtle residue. These traces are not punishments. They are simply the echoes of intense experiences, just as a deep sound lingers in the air after the instrument has fallen silent. If left unhealed, these imprints can affect your clarity, weigh down your spirit, and shape your choices in future incarnations. The temples exist to help you release what no longer serves you, and to restore you to your truest, most balanced state. Upon entering, you may be greeted by beings whose presence radiates an indescribable peace. They do not speak in words, yet their communication is direct, flowing straight into your awareness. They know you completely, your history, your struggles, your victories, your mistakes, and they hold all of it without judgment. There is no sense of shame here, no need to hide. They guide you to the places within yourself that are calling for attention, not with force, but with a compassion so deep that it feels like sunlight melting ice. The healing process is not the same for everyone. For some, it may feel like lying in a field of soft light, letting waves of warmth and color wash through you until the heaviness dissolves. For others, it may take the form of vivid visions, reliving moments of pain but now held in a field of love so complete that the memory is rewritten, not erased, but integrated into a larger understanding. Sometimes, you may be invited to step into an energetic pool that mirrors the nature of your soul. As you immerse yourself, the energy flows through you, carrying away the distortions, fears, and emotional scars that have dimmed your inner light. This work is not about forgetting, it is about transformation. The memories remain, but their hold on you changes. A moment that once carried the sting of betrayal may now be seen as the turning point that awakened your strength. A period of loss may be recognized as the opening that allowed deeper compassion to grow within you. The healing in these temples does not deny your suffering, it honors it by showing you the growth it made possible. In this way, you emerge not as a soul who has been patched together, but as one whose very essence has been realigned to reflect the truth of who you are. Some traumas run so deep that they affect the energetic blueprint of your being, the pattern that shapes not only your current state but the form you will take in future incarnations. The healers in these temples work with that blueprint, gently untangling the knots, repairing tears, and reweaving the strands of light until the flow of energy is smooth once again. This is not mechanical work, it is a collaboration between you and the beings who assist you. Your willingness to release, to forgive, to understand, plays as much a role in the process as their skill. The restoration you experience here also prepares you for the next chapter of your soul's journey. If you are to return to physical life, the alignment you receive ensures that you are not carrying unnecessary burdens into the new incarnation. This does not mean you are shielded from challenge, growth still requires it, but you begin again with clarity, with strength, and with the lessons of the past integrated rather than festering. The wounds no longer dictate your path. Instead, they become part of the wisdom you bring with you. Not every soul comes to these temples immediately after death. Some need time in other parts of the spirit world first, time to rest, to reflect, or to simply adjust to their new state. Others may resist the healing process, unwilling to release the identity that their wounds have given them. In such cases, the healers wait patiently, for they know that readiness cannot be forced. The doors of these temples are always open, and the invitation is eternal. When a soul chooses to enter, they are met exactly where they are, without expectation or condition. The atmosphere inside is beyond peaceful, it is sacred. The light here is not just illumination, but a living force that seems to flow through you and around you, resonating with the deepest parts of your being. Sounds, if they are present, are more like tones or harmonics that vibrate through your soul, each one loosening some knot of tension, each one restoring a sense of wholeness. Time itself feels different in these spaces. Hours or days may pass, or perhaps only moments, but the experience is so immersive that the passage of time loses all meaning. When you leave the temple, you do not walk out as the same soul who entered. You carry a new lightness, a new clarity. You may even feel as though your form has subtly changed, glowing more brightly, moving more freely. The heaviness is gone, replaced by a quiet strength and an openness to whatever lies ahead. The lessons you have learned are not erased by this healing, they are preserved, woven into your being in a way that empowers you rather than diminishes you. There is also a deeper understanding you carry forward, the recognition that healing is not something that happens only after death. The same principles that guide the work of the temples can be touched in physical life. Moments of stillness, acts of compassion, the willingness to forgive yourself and others, all of these are small reflections of the greater healing that waits in the spirit world. Knowing this, you may choose to live more consciously, tending to your energy while still in the body, so that when the time comes to cross over, you arrive with fewer burdens to release. In the vast journey of the soul, the temples of healing and restoration are places of renewal, but also of remembrance. They remind you of your original wholeness, the state you came from before any pain or fear dimmed your light. And they prepare you to step forward again, whether into another life on earth or into higher realms, with the full radiance of your being restored. They are proof that nothing you have endured has the power to break you, and that every wound can be transformed into wisdom when met with the light of the eternal. When the time comes to prepare for the next journey into physical life, the process begins quietly, almost imperceptibly. There is no sudden decree, no commanding voice declaring that you must return. Instead, a subtle pull begins to form within your being, an awareness that certain lessons remain unfinished, certain experiences still unexplored, certain aspects of your essence waiting to be brought into the light of a new incarnation. This is not a decision made in haste. The soul knows that to enter the density of the physical world is to enter a place of challenge and limitation, and so the choice is made with care, with purpose, and with an understanding of what will be gained by stepping once more into the cycle of birth and death. The decision-making process is deeply collaborative. You do not prepare for a new life in isolation. Guides and companions, many of whom have walked beside you for countless lifetimes, gather to help you review where you have been and where you are going. Together, you look into the patterns of your past lives, not only the events, but the emotions, the choices, and the consequences that have shaped your soul's evolution. You see the threads of growth, the recurring challenges, the moments of triumph, and the times where fear or limitation kept you from fully living your purpose. This review is not about judgment or punishment, it is about clarity. The clearer the picture, the more precisely you can shape what comes next. As the possibilities unfold before you, you begin to sense the themes that will define your next incarnation. Perhaps you have carried a fear of loss through many lives, and now the time has come to live in a way that teaches you trust and surrender. Perhaps you have struggled to express compassion for those who are different from you, and now you will step into a life that brings you face to face with diversity in its most challenging forms. Or perhaps you have mastered certain lessons, and are now ready to offer your gifts to the world in new ways, becoming a force for healing, inspiration, or change. Every path is unique, yet every path is chosen with the same intention, to move closer to the fullness of who you truly are. Once the general purpose of the life is chosen, the details begin to take shape. You are shown potential time periods, cultures, and geographic locations where the conditions will best support your growth. You see families into which you might be born, each offering different advantages and challenges. You may feel a pull towards certain souls you have journeyed with before, members of your soul group who will share this life with you in roles designed to help both of you grow. Sometimes, you will choose to incarnate alongside many familiar souls, creating a dense web of shared experience. Other times, you may choose a more solitary path, knowing that distance from your closest companions will push you to develop aspects of yourself that might otherwise remain dormant. One of the most profound aspects of this preparation is the way it balances free will with divine order. You are not forced into any life against your will, yet the choices are not random. They are guided by the wisdom of the higher self, that eternal aspect of you that sees far beyond the limits of your current understanding. This higher self knows the lessons you most need, the strengths you are ready to develop, and the contributions you are capable of making to the larger whole. It gently but firmly steers you toward the conditions that will allow these potentials to unfold. Even when a coming life will be difficult, you see the value in it from this higher perspective, and so you choose it willingly. Before the final decision is made, you may enter into a kind of rehearsal. In the fluid nature of the astral, you can briefly step into the energy of the potential life, feeling its challenges and opportunities as if you were already living it. This glimpse allows you to sense how the experiences will shape you, and whether they will indeed fulfill the intentions you have set. If the resonance is not right, adjustments are made. Another path may be considered, another family chosen, another set of circumstances arranged. Nothing is fixed until you give your consent. When the choice is finally made, the preparation deepens. You begin to draw to yourself the energies, talents, and qualities you will need. Some of these are carried directly from previous lives, embedded in the subtle body as innate gifts or tendencies. Others are placed in the form of latent seeds, abilities, or strengths that will awaken only when certain conditions are met in your new life. Agreements are made with other souls who will play key roles, whether as allies, teachers, challengers, or even adversaries. These agreements are not binding in the rigid sense, for free will remains, but they set the stage for the encounters that will most powerfully serve your evolution. There is also a letting go that must happen in this stage. Just as you once released the physical body to enter the astral, now you must release the boundless freedom of the astral to return to the density of physical form. You know that you will forget much of what you now understand. The veil of earthly perception will narrow your awareness, making it harder to see the interconnectedness and purpose that are so clear to you now. This is part of the design. The forgetting is what makes the lessons real. Without it, the choices you make in the physical would carry no true weight, for you would always be acting with the full memory of your eternal nature. By entering the world with limited awareness, you give yourself the gift of discovery, the chance to remember who you are through the lived experience of being human. As the moment of departure approaches, the feeling is not unlike the anticipation of a great journey. There is excitement, curiosity, and sometimes a touch of apprehension. You know the path ahead will not always be easy, but you also know it will be rich with meaning. Those who have guided you gather to send you off, offering blessings, encouragement, and the promise that you will never truly be alone. Even in the most difficult moments of your coming life, their presence will be there, unseen but felt, whispering reminders of the truth you carry within. When you finally take that step, it is like diving into a river whose current will carry you through all the twists and turns of a new story. The world you leave behind fades into the background, not lost, but waiting for you to return when this chapter is complete. In that moment, you are both the traveler and the author, stepping into a new page of your eternal book. Death, you realize, was never an ending, it was simply the turning of a page, and birth is the same. You have lived countless stories before, and you will live countless more. Each one is a thread in the tapestry of your becoming, each one a path that leads you deeper into the infinite truth of who you are. In the end, the preparation for reincarnation is an act of love, love for your own growth, love for the souls you journey with, and love for the source from which you came. It is the conscious choice to enter the realm of limitation in order to discover the boundless, to walk through shadows in order to find the light, to live and die and live again until every fragment of your being shines with the full radiance of your true self. And so, with purpose in your heart and eternity at your back, you step forward once more, ready to write the next chapter in the endless story that is your life.